Hello, I'm Jasmine Chisholm, and this is my McNair research presentation, Environmental Racism at the Heart of Extraction, Chemical Usage in LA County oil fields with respect to sociodemographics. And I'll be going over some table of contents, giving some background, going over case studies of Inglewood and Beverly Hills / Beverly Hills oil fields, methods and theoretical framework, some significance, preliminary results, and future directions. So before Hollywood is what it is today, oil was LA's first major industry. In the early 1900s, oil derricks were spread across LA County, and they were next to very sensitive land uses, such as schools, homes, and workplaces. As we can see here, there's an oil derrick right next to this home, and there wasn't really any strict regulations to where these oil derricks could be placed. However, as time has gone on, technology has increased and information has been spread. It's now known that oil rigs has an impact on public health. For example, chemicals used for oil extraction can lead to various types of exposure through soil pollution, water pollution, and air pollution. And common chemicals used, such as hydrogen chloride, 2-butoxyethanol, and xylene, can lead to pulmonary and cardiovascular diseases, increased chances of stroke, and cause some forms of cancer. Today, there are currently 5,000 active oil wells in LA County and 1,000 within city limits, and there's 75% of active oil and gas wells are located within 500 meters of sensitive land uses. And as you can see here, this oil rig is right behind a neighborhood, and their residents are running right next to this oil rig, which can lead to chemical exposure. I'll be going over some of my case studies of the Inglewood and Beverly Hills / Beverly Hills oil fields. So, the Inglewood oil field, or the IOF, is the largest urban oil field in the United States. There are over 600 active wells, and it spreads across 1,000 acres. As you can see from this map here, the purple dots represent idle oil wells, while the green dots represent active oil wells. And the IOF is right next to Baldwin Hills, which is a predominantly affluent BIPOC community and is locally known to be part of the Black Beverly Hills. However, despite of this influence, there is lack of strict regulatory measures for oil extraction here. Currently, Baldwin Hills residents are going under the Baldwin Hills assessment as they believe that these oil wells have an impact on their health. And from the composition of this oil field, we can see that it's very open. There aren't really any mitigation measures to prevent chemical exposure to these residents. And for my second case study of the Beverly Hills / Savoy Hills oil fields, there are less than 60 active oil wells in Beverly Hills and less than 20 active oil wells in the Savoy Hills oil field. And both of these communities are predominantly white and affluent. And because of this, they hold a disproportionate amount of capital and political power. For example, Beverly Hills, the community was able to raise $40 million in order to clean up oil extraction and chemical pollution happening on the campus. And the community is also able to enact strict regulatory control for oil extraction. Beverly Hills was the first to ban hydraulic fracturing in California. And you might be looking at the Beverly Hills oil field and asking yourself, where are the oil rigs here? Well, they're under this windowless building, and this mitigation measure helps to prevent chemical exposure to the residents there. And in Savoy Hills oil fields, the oil operations are located on a golf course, and this green space acts as a buffer between the oil operations and the community. So, the significance of this project, the LA County Board of Supervisors voted to ban new oil and gas extraction and to phase out all of oil production. So, there's a need to understand how much chemical cleanup is needed in order to have justice for the communities that are overly exposed to these measures. And there needs to be policy change in communities like Baldwin Hills and others that are experiencing chemical exposure from these oil extraction sites. This leads to my research question: how do sociodemographic circumstances affect chemical usage in LA County oil fields? And I'll be going over my methods and theoretical framework. So, in order to analyze quantitative data, I need to make sure that I'm using a critical lens so that I'm doing justice for these communities. So, I'll be using critical race theory, which is a set of ideas that holds that racial bias is inherent in many parts of the Western world, especially in its legal and social institutions on the basis that they're primarily designed for and by white folks. And this theory leads to legal implications such as redlining, which is the illegal practice of refusing to offer credit or insurance to a particular community on a discriminatory basis based on race or ethnicity. And org operations are informed by redlining. And because of this, they have significant effects on socioeconomics and sociodemographics in the communities right next to these oil extraction sites, and they still affect the communities to this day. Redlining leads to systematic implications such as environmental racism, which is a form of systemic racism whereby communities of color are disproportionately burdened with health hazards through policies and practices that force them to live to proximity to sources of toxic waste. However, researchers like me are trying to implicate environmental justice, which is the means of fair treatment of people of all races, cultures, and incomes with respect to development, adoption, and implementation of environmental laws and regulations. So to analyze my quantitative methods, I'll be looking into the South Coast Air Quality Monitoring data and California Geologic Energy Management Division from 2015 to 2019. I'll be using R to evaluate the chemical usage in pounds per year, most common chemicals, and the oil production per year. I'll also be looking at the American Community Survey from the same time period by overlaying sociodemographic information over GIS generated maps. So for some preliminary results, these two graphs show the top 10 chemicals applied from 2015 to 2019 in the Baldwin Hills area as well as the Beverly Hills. And as we can see from the Baldwin Hills graph, that the most common chemical used is hydrogen chloride. However, as we look at the Beverly Hills graph with its hydrochloric acid being its most top 10 chemical, there is a significant difference in the amount of chemicals being used, with hydrogen chloride in Baldwin Hills being almost 5 times as much chemical usage than Beverly Hills with its hydrochloric acid. And this graph shows a monthly total chemical mass for an Inglewood oil field from 2015 to 2019. And as we can see here, that the most amount of chemicals were used in 2016, however, slightly decreased into 2019. And this graph shows the same information in the Beverly Hills / Savoy Hills oil fields during the same time period and at the same scale. And as we can see, in 2016 is when the most chemicals are being used, and it also steadily decreased. But compared to Baldwin Hills, there is a drastic difference in the amount of chemicals being used in these two oil fields as compared to the IOF. So when evaluating charts like these, when looking at the total applied toxic chemicals from 2015 to 2019, even though Beverly Hills has a slightly higher margin of toxic chemicals being used at 83% as compared to 79%, there's a clear difference in the amount of chemicals being used in these two communities, clearly showing the environmental injustice happening in the Baldwin Hills area. So for some future applications, I'll be continuing to analyze chemical usage data in R, analyzing oil production data in R and GIS, and a possible oral history collection in the Baldwin Hills communities to get their perspective on how the IOF has affected their health. And I'd like to give some acknowledgments to the TRIO program, of course, Dr. Laura Cushing, the Cushing Lab, my McNair directors, Dr. Uchis Lucero and Dr. Ho, the McNair Scholar, junior and senior cohorts, and my graduate mentors. And if you would like to learn more information about the oil fields that I'll be evaluating in LA County, I created a Google Earth presentation giving a brief history of each oil field that I'll be looking at so that you'll be able to see geographically what they look like from a different perspective. Thank you for listening.